In the previous video in this series on personal branding, we looked at what story building is, the fundamentals of story building, and how it applies to personal branding. Now, just to recap that, business brands need storytelling, and so do personal brands, right? So you as a personal brand need to be telling a story, and this story is made up of two components. One is the origin story, which is how you came about to be where you are today and where you're going into the future. And the other part is a story that aligns with the kind of persona you are, the kind of target audience that you are trying to communicate with, and so on and so forth. So these are the two components of the story building. But then again, what exactly is the story building? Okay, in that video we spoke about what story building is, sort of like a definition and giving some clarity in terms of the components of a story and how it should be told. In today's episode, we will talk about the next stage. So in personal branding, you start with your kind of personal brand essence, right? So this is to do with your purpose, your vision, mission, core values, and so on and so forth. The next one, we spoke about story building, what story building means, and so on and so forth. The next step of that process is communication. So communication is sort of made up of your message and the media. That means you need to first identify what your message is, and then you select the kind of platforms that you want to use to broadcast that message. But message needs to be carefully crafted, right? So message is nothing but how you tell the story and the content of what you say, what you do. So to get the right kind of message, to craft the right kind of message, you need to ask yourself a series of questions. And these questions are really well put together by Social Media Examiner. Now, I don't know if you follow that website, but they have some great content on how to market on social media, what social media is, different strategies and things like that. And I found these six questions to be really relevant to this process of personal brand building. These questions sort of tackle the various stages of the personal brand building process, right? And of course, the kind of personal brand building process starts with defining a problem. What is the change you want to bring in this world? What is the problem that you want to solve, right? As a person, as an individual, and this could be in your career path, this could be as an entrepreneur. So defining the problem is the starting point. Once you define the problem, it then leads you to identifying the target audience. Now, the biggest mistake that an entrepreneur or even a career path person could make is really trying to target everyone. Trying to target everyone is the same as targeting no one. And it's the same in business, it's the same for brands, and it is the same for individuals. So if you go on LinkedIn, or if you go on any of the social media channels, and you see the people trying to build their personal brands, the fundamental mistake is that they are trying to target everyone. They're trying to address everyone. Now, you can address a broader range of people down the line once you have become a personal brand, once you've established your personal brand. But to start with, you need to really identify a niche kind of audience, a specific set of audience. And of course, those audiences are determined by the problem that you want to solve. So identifying the problem is the first step. That will then lead to identifying the kind of target audience. And this target audience will determine how and what kind of message that you're going to broadcast. And once you've identified that, you become an ambassador of that problem that you're trying to solve, right? So you bring in your passion, you become an authority, you become an ambassador. So first, you've got identified the problem. Then you identify the target audience. Next, you become an ambassador of the problem, not an ambassador of the solution. The solution is what you will tell in your stories. It's what you will communicate. But you become an ambassador of the problem itself. For example, let's say that a solution to a particular kind of problem is hard work, right? And this is a great example again on Social Media Examiner. And let's say that the solution to a particular problem or a particular challenge or particular ambition or whatever is hard work, right? So you don't become an ambassador of hard work. You don't just keep on talking about hard work. You actually become an ambassador of the problem that you're trying to solve. And you talk about hard work in your communications, in your messaging, in the things you share, the stories you tell, the videos you make, the photos that you post. Everything else touches upon hard work. But in your kind of, as a role as an ambassador of the problem, you only talk about the problem, right? I hope you get what I'm saying, because it is very critical. People, especially when they're trying to build their personal brands, they focus on the solution rather than the problem. They do talk about the problem, but they spend most of the time talking about the solution, which is okay, but it should be balanced, so to speak, right? So you need to talk about the problem and you need to become an ambassador. That means you need to show your passion about the problem. And of course, you need to then, tell your story and talk about the solution. So a part of becoming an authority is really amplifying the problem. And when I say amplifying the problem, I'm not talking about making unnecessary noise about a particular problem, fear-mongering or just making, unnecessary noise. Yeah, that's the only word I could really find. Right? So amplifying a problem does not mean that you try to create a problem where there is none, or you sort of use, fear-mongering or, things like that. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Amplifying a problem means that you bring your passion, you sort of becoming an authority on that problem, and you fit together your origin story and your brand story, your personal brand story, towards that problem. So you essentially laying out the foundation for the journey that you want to take your target audience on, so that they then understand why you are an authority on that subject and why they should seek you out, why they should reach out to you, why they should work with you, right? Or why they should build a relationship with you. And so this is the kind of circle that you need to go through. It's a circular process. So you're identifying the problem, right? First, you're identifying your target audience, right? That's the second. And identifying the target audience is is determined by identifying the problem. And once you've identified the target audience, then you start becoming an ambassador to the problem. You're becoming an authority. You're bringing your passion out, and then you're amplifying the problem. And then the final element is that you're building the story around the solution. So those are the steps you need to take your personal kind of brand audience. This is the journey that you need to take as part of building your message, right? So the message comes from all these elements, and then you will know on any given day what to say, what to talk about, what to share, what kind of stories to tell. All these will fall into space. And this is what your message framework is made up of. And once you have determined what your message framework is, and you know what the different elements are, you know what the problem is, you know what the solution is, and how you are the best person to talk about it. This could be, the kind of research you've done. So once you identified a problem that you want to tackle as a personal brand, you need to do tons of research, right? You probably already have an experience. So for example, let's break this down, and let me give you an example so you sort of sort of frame it in context. So I was speaking about myself in the previous videos, and let's talk about myself again in this video. So how did I build my personal brand? To build my personal brand, I had to identify a problem. And the problem I saw was the lack of knowledge in terms of entrepreneurs and people who want to build businesses in building brands, right? In building brands. So that's the problem that I saw. And of course, I know how to solve that. And how did I know how to solve that? Because of my 20 plus years of experience working with entrepreneurs, working with brands, helping build brands, building brand strategies, positioning strategies, building visual brand identities, my building an agency, a branding agency, and then incubator and all that. So all that was my origin story. And that gave me an authority status. And I could become an authority because of all that experience behind me, right? So, and who did I want to target? So that was the problem I wanted to solve. And the target audience, obviously, from that problem were entrepreneurs who were looking for knowledge. They were looking to learn, right? They were looking to learn how to build robust brands, how to build brands that were successful, brands that were not in the red ocean, but brands that were in the blue ocean, brands that were connecting with their audience and making an impact on changing the world. So those were the target audience I narrowed down. Now you might say, well, that is a pretty broad, your entrepreneurs. No, okay, I had much more, I don't want to go into too much detail, but believe me and trust me when I say that I did narrow it down. And so that was the audience, right? So problem identified, and then you have audience identified. And then I became an ambassador to that problem. So if you look at my social media footprint online, and if you look at my blog, if you look at the videos, if you look at anything I say or do online, is all about that problem. I'm always talking about how you need to educate yourself to be able to build a robust brand. It's not just enough to know about your market segment, your product or your service. You may be a king on that, right? You may be extremely good in the service you provide or the product that you're creating, but you need to educate yourself on brand strategies, how to build a brand, how to position your brand, understanding who your audience is, and things like that, right? So I became an ambassador of the problem. Then what? Then I amplify the problem. So amplification comes through the kind of articles I write and the kind of videos I create and so on and so forth. And once I've amplified the problem, I tell the story of the solution. Now the solution is not saying, well, you need to learn, you need to learn, you need to learn. No, that is the problem, right? The solution then is the rest of the story that I tell. And that's where my personal brand sort of thrives. So day in and day out, the content I put out, the kind of stories I pick, the kind of things I talk about, they're all the solution to that problem. So that completes the circle. I hope I'm making sense, and I know it may sound very obvious, but I'm really being very intense because I want you to really visualize these steps and understand what these steps are. So to build, to create the message of your personal branding, to know what to say and what to put out, the content, to build yourself as an authority, as an ambassador, you need to identify your problem, you need to identify your target audience, you need to become the ambassador. That means you need to bring your passion out about the problem. You need to amplify the problem, and then you need to tell the story of the solution to your audience. And slowly you expand your target audience. So you start with a niche and then you expand. And this is what the messaging construct of your personal branding is. Once you know this, then you need to select the platform, which is the right platform for you. And that will be the topic of the next video in this series. So if you haven't already watched the previous videos in this series, find the links below this video and watch them from the beginning. The first one was just about what personal branding is, why you need it, and a bird's eye view of how to create a personal brand, right? The next one was about your personal brand essence, your personal essence. This was about your purpose, vision, mission, core values, and all that. The third video was about story building, what story building means and why you need story building in your personal branding. And of course, today's video is about your messaging framework. So how do you tell your stories, right? And how you go about becoming that personal brand is. And the next one is about picking the right platform or platforms. It could be one or more, and how to pick those and what to do on those. So don't miss that video and subscribe to this channel. Click on the bell icon so that you know when that next video comes out. And if you have any questions, leave them below and I will try and answer them. Till my next video, take care.